Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. This is a conservative leaning podcast, but I do take both sides of an issue, contrary to what Bob in New York says. Hey, Bob, I'll be calling you later today. Today is June 3rd. This is episode 81. Now, I said I'm a conservative. Excuse me. I am a conservative. I am a Republican. I am not MAGA. I am a federalist, not an independent, but a federalist, a constitutionalist. Both sides of an issue can be looked at and should be looked at. Both sides should be heard. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. I do have a problem when one side, be it Republican or one side being Democrats, cross the line of the good book. And it does need to be addressed. And it should be addressed. And it should be something that all Americans, no matter of their political persuasions, should be actively looking at. I mean, some things sound wonderful, you can't do it. Other things sounds terrible, and it's allowed. Most of the time, common sense will, it makes sense. And other times, you got to read the nitty gritty to go, yeah, they could do that. Or, hey, no, you can't do that. Or someone should say something, or wouldn't this be a issue? Anyone? So I do try to do that. And I do try to be, I look objectively at an argument. Some arguments you just can't make. It's silly. It's emotional. And if you stick with the facts and you stick what a government can do and what a government can't do, what a company can do and what a company can't do, it is push away the emotion and just look at what is allowed. And you could always challenge. In most cases, you could always challenge. It might not go anywhere, and the courts or anyone else might tell you, you don't have a leg to stand on, but you have the right to say, hey, I want to challenge it. There you go. So today, I'm going to be talking about my old alma mater, CBS television. The other thing, President Trump had some bumpy road this week, but there is something that people aren't looking at too closely, and it's a big win as of right now for President Trump. And the other thing that I'll be talking about is again, the IRS settlement and the Department of Justice Judgement Fund, kind of they're backtracking themselves, which I said they can do until they can't. So I think they realized, and we'll take a look at that. So let's get started today. CBS announced that Scott Pelle from 60 Minutes has been fired. He's been a fixture at CBS for years, many years, decades. And he's been part of 60 Minutes for, I think, over 10 years. And I don't consider this tabloid news because there's a lot of people screaming that it's political and that it is, Donald Trump. And This has nothing to do with free speech. Colbert had nothing to do with free speech. You don't have free speech when you work for a company. You have free speech as I have it here because I don't answer to anyone. But if I had worked, if this was a company and the company said, hey, we don't want you discussing this and we don't want you discussing that, or you can discuss this, but you can't throw a political spin onto it, you just, the facts, that's great. But that has not, that isn't stifling free speech. Because really, free speech is the government coming in and penalizing you. You know, taking away your liberty. So, this is not the case. CBS decided to go down a different path. Skydance Media, who is now the parent of CBS Television, and of course everything that falls underneath that, said, listen, but we feel that your show has gone too far one way and isn't central. It's got to be centralist. You got to, you can look and you could report, but you can't just push one way. And according to the reports, Scott Pelle objected vigorously at a meeting held with the executive producers. And I don't know if Barry Weiss was, involved with that directly, or could have been on a Zoom meeting with it, but they decided that enough. Scott, thank you. Time for you to go. And Scott said, or it was quoted that he had stated that CBS was being mismanaged, that the company was out there to just destroy 60 Minutes. And, you work for someone and you call them jerks. What do you think is going to happen to you? What would happen to you at your job if you did that? And for someone like me, they go, oh, you're insubordinate. Out you go. Out you go. Insubordination. And they fire you. And they could. In Scott Pelle's case, they probably had something in his contract that say, hey, if we can, for whatever our reasons may be, legitimate reasons. And they just said, hey, we don't think that you're going to fit into this new way we're doing business. So, you're out. They didn't give him a chance to resign. They didn't give him a chance to platform, to get on a soapbox. They just, out you go. So it had nothing to do with free speech. He could say, hey, we don't want the corporate entity to steer where we would like to go. And the company can turn around and go, at the end of the day, we're paying the bills. And we'll decide where we're going to go and just how far we're going to let you go with it. Do you have a problem with that? Just tell us yes or no. And he said, yeah, I got a problem with that. Well, I don't believe you should have problems in your life. You're fired. And that's how ruthless they can be. They don't have to accept your reasoning. And I'm not saying that he didn't have good reasoning. He might have been saying, "Hey, listen, we report and then we dive in as we see it." But that has not really been the case in a lot of instances of 60 Minutes. They've gotten very political, going after Trump was a real easy hill to climb. He spoke his mind. He didn't care how it came out. You know, he is a narcissist. He is an egomaniac. Yeah, okay. Yeah, big deal. Doesn't preclude you from running for office or being a successful business person. As a matter of fact, it helps in those instances. So he didn't care. He didn't measure his words. And you could say he spoke like he was in a bar, elbow to elbow, with guys. And hey, I get my words out in 12 words. And that guy's a bum. He's no good. Look at him. Look at him. Look at that big fat. And if you were at a bar and you're looking, you go, he's a big fat. But if you're a politician, you'd say, listen, I disagree with this. The person sitting on the other side of my aisle, the esteemed, blah blah blah. And there have been times where I've agreed with this individual. I just can't do it this time, and these are the reasons. And you try to be as diplomatic as possible. Well, Trump's no diplomat. But he does make his words understandably simple. And that's what's important, and that's what resonated with the American voter. Not to mention, Trump won for a number of reasons. The biggest one was, the DNC just continually lying to the American public. And from COVID to the president's health and who was running the country. So Trump won for a lot of reasons. But the other factor that Democrats don't talk about, if that's the case, how did they lose the House? Why? Why couldn't they take the Senate? So those are real issues that they needed to come across. And it's easy to go, 60 Minutes is being manipulated by, the puppet master. He controls the Ellison family. Then why are their ratings so bad? Why, why is Fox News, going strong? But they won't answer those questions. They won't go there. So this idea that it was free speech, 60 Minutes was not news. 60 Minutes was a show. 48 hours is a show. It's not the news. So they didn't have to hold up to the bar of news, even though it was the tail wagging the dog. What was said on 60 Minutes influenced the news. That's a problem. That's a problem. Because some of their statements were not true, were not accurate. Where in the news, you got to be pretty well accurate in where you're going with, or you're going to find yourself in trouble. And CBS News did. They found themselves in trouble. 60 Minutes found themselves in trouble. And the people that are watching 60 Minutes are, I would say, people with a much more disposable income than someone watching the Colbert Show. So when you have lead-in times and other people coming into the mix, advertisers, the companies are there to make money. News is a public service that they must meet for their obligations under their license from the FCC. And, there's rules and regulations and things of that sort. But 60 Minutes doesn't come under that. So when you have people screaming, this is an affront to democracy, no, it's not. No, it's not an affront to democracy. Number one, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic that has democratic principles. That's it. The company was within their rights, and they let him go. All right. 17 minutes on, about 14.5 minutes on Scott Pelle. Good luck to you, Scott. Maybe you should have called Dan Rather and Colbert for some advice before you opened your mouth up at a big meeting like that. But I'm guessing that they all know what's coming down the road for these people. They got to be out, and a new broom sweeps clean. So, were they out to kill 60 Minutes? Nope. That's a brand that CBS likes having. Are they out to show that we're going to move it along? Yeah. And either you are with us or you're gone. And that's just companies' right. They can take that direction. And time will tell if they're right. But it's not guaranteed. And, if they fall flat on their face, well, they're going to have to answer to their stockholders. And the same thing with Colbert. If Colbert was losing as much money, 20 to 40 million per year, and they're now only going to lose 8 million per year, that means they made up to $32 million of extra profit. So where two negatives can equal a positive, right? We see that all the time in math. All right. Let's leave it there. Let's talk about a win for Trump that people might not see it as a win for Trump, that they don't understand what it really meant. Okay. Trump earlier this year, I think, signed an executive order. It was 399, ensuring citizenship verification in federal elections. All right, sounds simple enough, right? What's wrong with that? So, what the federal government plans on doing is compiling a list through Social Security. These are different departments inside the federal government where citizenship names, there'll be lists of people who are citizens. And they'll be given to the states to go through and verify that the people that are registering to vote in a federal election and in some state elections, some local elections allow non-citizens to vote. It's wrong, but they allow it. But what this does now is to me, it adds another layer of safety into saying that people that shouldn't vote can't vote. And now the election people have to show something that they're adhering to this executive order. And the Democrats are fighting it tooth and nail. Quietly, but they're fighting it. Because again, 80% of Democratic voters polled said they want to see a citizenship clause or check on voter ID. And the Democrats can't stand that. That this really throws them into a tizzy. And they use people will be disenfranchised. Well, the only people that will be disenfranchised are the people that aren't supposed to be voting. Everyone else can vote. Non-citizens cannot vote in most of our elections. What's wrong with that? And the Democrats are just fighting it. There's a HR 8666, interesting last three numbers of the bill that they want, House resolution, to, through legislation, stop the executive order. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. The only way it could even start to move is if the Democrats were to retake the House. And honestly, I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. And the SAVE Act and all this, that's if the Republicans hold on to what they got or take more, oh my God, you're going to see a flurry of legislation. And the Democrats are going to be screaming, this is the end of our democracy. And I go, no, that's exactly how our republic works. We elect people to represent us, and they, take the best step forward in our stead. They represent. And if you want to call that democracy, fine, call that democracy. I call that, democratic processes inside a republic. It's not just, mob rule. And the Democrats are in panic mode. Panic mode. So the bill, well, the executive order. Now remember, executive orders are just that. It is just allowed as long as a president continues to make it allowed. There is nothing stopping President Trump from going, well, I thought about it, and I'm gonna pull that, and then it doesn't happen. Or if Gavin Newsom wins the election, I'm just throwing out a name there, or they could go in that day, as in January 20th, and go in there and, but I'm ceasing to make that happen. And they can make that happen. They can make that disappear. But if the president wins both the houses, the Congresses, this will become, they'll fight to make this a law. And then it's not so easy for people to fight it. You could take it to the Supreme Court, and I'm sure they would, to show somehow it's unconstitutional, which is their right. They can do that. And the courts could either say, we're not going to listen to it, or, they'd have to take it up through the courts to finally end up at the Supreme Court. They just can't run there unless it's so egregious that any judge would say, yeah, this it's way above my pay grade, because it's just so out in left field. I don't know how to interpret it. Then it goes to the Supreme Court, who goes, oh, that's why you guys wear the big black robes. You got to figure it out. So that is a judge. A judge has stated. The Democrats went to the judge and a whole bunch of people, and they stopped this immediately. And a federal judge said, no, it can continue. But there's caveats in that, too, where he goes, well, this hasn't been implemented yet. So I can't say who's getting hurt or how, and all this stuff that you're saying hasn't transpired yet. It's just what ifs and maybes and could be. So until you can show me, I'm going to allow it to continue. There's no reason for me to stop it. Now, that doesn't mean that the second that this is implemented, because if you read Executive Order 14399, it is some hefty reading. And there's a lot of federal agencies involved with it that all have to crosstalk, and it's complicated. It's complicated. Right down to the United States Postal. It's complicated. And you could have Democrats saying it's not perceivable that this would even work. That we can't for the life of how we're going to fund this. It just seems to us that it can't work. And we already check people for citizenship on a state level for voting and blah, blah, blah. This is much to do about nothing. They can make that argument. They can show facts on that argument. It's just not, well, we're just saying we're doing it. And, well, someone goes, well, show us when we're doing it. I don't know, we should be doing it, but, they're doing it. It is being done. So you're making laws, or you want to make procedures that are already being done that really complicate. And, states are allowed to control certain portions of elections, be it state, the states are allowed. So what they're trying to say is that this is a overreach of the federal government. But if you really read the statutes on it, it's not, because it's about qualifications, not the qualifications of a candidate, but the qualifications for a person's right to vote. And where the government, federal government, is going to say, we're trying to enhance for the state that they must use this list. And thus, we're actually helping the state, because anyone born in the United States, as of right now, is a citizen and protected all the rights thereof. And you have other people that go, this seems a little bit of, where are your papers? We know who you are. And in reality, they don't know who you are. You pay taxes, they know who you are. You vote, they know who you are. You pay into Social Security, they know who you are. You apply for a passport, they know who you are. You get on an airplane, they know who you are. So those fears, while they might resonate with a lot of people, the well-informed, they know better. They know better. So that was a big, silent kind of victory for President Trump. That a judge said, no, I'm going to let this go. But again, the second it's implemented, then people can look at it. Then people can say, whoa. People are being hurt over here. They'd have to prove it, and they'd have to make their case, because once it goes in front of a judge, and the judge goes, no, you didn't prove your case here. And they go, well, we want another bite of the apple. And they'll go, well, yeah, I'll give you that second bite of the apple, but you're on the way back of my list, and now I got all these other people, and you are going to be the last people I hear, if ever. And they might go, we're not going to hear it again. Next time, do your homework. Wait for something really big. So it could be a win, but it's only a win as long as the powers that be stay the powers that be, unless they turn this into a law, which I don't see happening. I wish it would happen, but I don't see it happening. All right. That was, again, about 14, 15 minutes on that, excuse me. Now we're going to talk about, again, the Donald Trump settlement with the IRS. And the IRS settlement is different than the Department of Justice settlement. So everyone understands that. There were two settlements. All right? One of the settlements was the IRS settlement of releasing private data, IRS filings of private citizens and citizens that they were not authorized to release. And the person who made an unauthorized release, Charles Little, Little something. I keep saying Little Feet, but it's not Little Feet. It's, but Little John, sorry. That settlement where Trump was going into and going, blah, 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 blah. All right. You did this, and this guy did this, and he, I don't want this information released out again and more. Every time someone gets something up their keister. So I want all my tax records from this date back sealed. Now, the IRS had agreed to that. And in that mix were the families of Trump and his organizations. But only the organizations up to this date, and only the organizations known to be on record as of that date. Anyone else going forward, we can look at. This is not precedent setting. This is done all the time with the IRS. That they say, we're not going to look back. We're done. That's it. It's over. You go to the IRS and you argue back and forth and you go, this is it. I don't want you coming back and go, okay, you did this. Now we're going to go 2 years more back. We're going to find. No. You go and you look. You do what you're going to do. You're here now. We'll settle this now, but you ain't going any further. And if you don't, well, we'll take this to tax court. And the worst that can happen to me is I got to pay interest and more on the fine and whatever. And they look and they go, it's not worth the litigation. We might lose it. And if we lose it, then other people are going to go, well, I'm going to use that case as an example of what you're doing to me. And so they settle. And they go, fine, we're done. We're not looking back. We're looking forward, but we're not looking back. Done all the time, folks. This is not anything, double secret. Now, could a president go into office and go, yeah, I'm gonna unsettle that? Yes, they can. Why? Because they, as running the executive branch, has the power to do that. It would be a huge issue. Because that really then falls under contract law. And even though the president has the authority to do that, again, remember, it's only legal until it doesn't become legal. And a judge could reverse that. And the chances of that happening is little to, Zero. Now, it doesn't mean that there might be laws coming down from Congress to go, they can't do that anymore. They got to do this, and rules and stuff that go in to look at. And again, but the president has the power. You don't understand that. To set policies, to set who does it, and how it's enforced. They do. They have that power. But you could put safeguards in if you feel that that's a safeguard. You could make an amendment to say the president can't do that. I would say that you'd have to change so much in the Constitution and the Supremacy Clause that no one would ever, ever, ever want to touch that. Because that is truly sacrosanct. And, you know, you could say that you had a reckless president who did all this. And you could say that. You could make that. You could make that call. But when it came down to it, well, all right, could he do it? Yes. That's all it. Was he allowed to do it? Yes. Should he have done it? Remember, I said before, just because you could do something doesn't mean you should do it. So it comes down to where do you stand on that? Now, the Department of Justice settlement with the 1776, $1 $1.776 billion going into the Judgement fund. It wasn't a new slush fund. I mean, this was all bullcrap by the Democrats. And you'll have the Democrats going, we stopped this. We did it. This is what we did. This is why we have to be back in power again. But they can make that claim. Because it's the power of the purse. Congress has the power of the purse. And you could say you could have made it $1 trillion. Not going to happen. Because Congress has to approve that. And for them to approve it, we have to know every little detail about it. And I said before, could the president do this? Yes. It was legal for him to do. Until it became not legal. And I think the people around him told him that, this is not a fight we want to have to fight. This was not a fight that we should have. Because it takes the power of the Congress away, and that's not good for anyone. And you don't have that right. Congress has that right. And they exercised their right. Congress could have allowed it. Congress could have just said, the president said it, But they didn't. And there were arguments on both sides. You'd never get the vote on it. And that is the checks and balance inside the republic. All right? And I said before, what Donald Trump did was perfectly legal for him to do. Until they said it wasn't. And they never said it wasn't. Because it never got that far. There was no lawsuit. He withdrew the lawsuit. There was the Department of Justice agreement with this, they backed away from it. They said, well, we're scrapping it. I'm erasing it. But what it does show is that a willingness for this administration to really push hard. And I'm going to say I wasn't thrilled with it. I had no problem with him saying I could sue and tell me I can't sue and we're going to take this another way, but we're going to still go and sue. I was fine with that because I basically feel there was a citizen injured, and there was the federal government allowing itself to be sued. Trump said, "Yeah, I'm going to allow it." That's all that he needed to do. And the IRS was like, "All right, we'll make a settlement with him," because what the original argument was they went back, to like 2010 and looked for things, or 2008 and looked for things, and it's really way past the normal looking at of a person's file, unless they feel that it was fraud. Now, this was just a tax deduction that they said, well, you kind of took it twice because you took it here and then you took it again over here, and you seem to have gotten 2 bites of an apple here that you should have only had 1 bite from. And that might have been the case. I don't know. I have no idea. But when you read the IRS thing, they say they concluded. All right. Show me how you concluded that. And now we get to argue that. And that happens all the time. And before it goes through a trial, because once it goes through trial, that's a whole different situation. Remember, the tax court has their own court. Everyone thinks there's 2 courts in our country, a civil court and a criminal court. There's 3. A tax court. And you don't want to be in the tax court because you're not afforded the same rights as you are in other ones until it becomes criminal, and then, of course, you have all the rights. But, yeah, you don't want to find yourself there because it's death or freedom with the IRS. So Trump's settlement with the IRS stays. Trump's settlement for DOJ acting in a weaponized manner, that goes away. That goes away. If the July 6th people want to sue the government on their own, have at it. Have at it. Which I think some should. But we'll see what happens. All right. That's been 49 minutes of my show today. I appreciate everyone who's listened today. I haven't had a show up in a couple of days. It just wasn't feeling good. I go through that. I had a lot on the plate too, and just couldn't do it. Just no energy to do it, no motivation, even though there was stuff out there in the news. Just no motivation to do it. I'll probably talk about what's going on in Iran on tomorrow's show, which is, who knows? I don't know what's going on. We're not hearing too much about it. So Don't know. Can't tell you. I just hear a lot of people yapping, and it's just yapping, and I don't want to be part of the chorus that is just yapping. All right, everyone, be safe. Please give to a charity if you can give it to a charity. That'd be great. Just check out that charity. Don't become a victim trying to help victims. If that is not something you're interested in doing, please look to give to a local food bank. They always need food, and they always need a contribution, and that helps locally in 98% of the cases. And you could actually help people inside your own community. Please say a prayer. Prayer does work, no matter what a Democrat might tell you. All right, everyone. Be safe, be well, and I'm sure I forgot to discuss things today that I wanted to, but I'm tired. Join me again. Please like, comment, and subscribe as I fade to